Here with feeling.
WOBM News presents Ask the Senator, your chance to bring issues that affect you and the Jersey Shore straight to your representatives at the State House. The phones are open at 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Senator begins now. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
With the state budget hearings already in progress, one would think that we'd be subjected to high-volume, high-intensity rhetoric, especially in light of a federal budget that shows every promise of turning the money spigot down to a dribble for states. So far, though, that drama has been mostly confined to the State House, where legislation is moving at a blistering pace. Every seat is open this November, as well as the governor's post, and a newly refreshed electorate is interpreting every policy decision based on their own stance. Is the hypercharged political atmosphere in the streets a help or an obstacle to reasoned discourse in Trenton? As Obamacare gives way to the American Health Care Act, and we'll find out if that happens, what will that mean to your ability to afford to be sick in New Jersey? Tonight, you and I can explore that and many other topics with Shore Senator, who's never been shy about his direction, 30th District Republican Robert Singer. It's a real pleasure to have you back again.
Thanks for having me. I always enjoy being here with you.
Senator, I don't even know where to start. There has been so much going on out there. I know you've been privy to a lot of discussion about the health care issue. As a ranking member of the Health Committee, it's Health and Human Services and Seniors.
Correct.
And so there has to have been some discussion about the replacement of Obamacare, the repeal of the American Health Care Act, of the American Affordable Care Act. Just based on, and this is just ballpark talking now, but where do you sit with it? What parts, have you been able to assess any part that looks good to you, any part that looks bad?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts to it. Part of the problem is, and this is where we're getting into it, it's not one size fits all. I mean, you've heard some of the congressmen, I'm not voting for it, I don't want to vote for it. You can't really say that until you really look at all the winners and loser factors. Mm-hmm. For example, the state of New Jersey put over 100,000 more residents on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Medicaid is something we were subsidized by Obamacare to do so. If that goes away, you got 100,000 people in this state that the state's got to come up with the money to keep them on Medicaid or drop them. A lot of residents, a lot of families. One of the key factors it's a very involved thing, and people really don't want to spend the time to really listen because it's so many moving parts. Let me give you an example. And this is really one of the key factors into it. There's something called ERISA plans. And that might be something you've never heard of, and most people have never heard of ERISA plans.
No, I have not.
ERISA plans were major companies in the United States that have employees throughout the country in different states. And they were carved out by the federal government and said, listen, because you employ thousands of people and you're self-insured, they're self-insured plans, you do not come under state jurisdiction. You only have to match federal requirements. So all ERISA plans were exempt from state mandate and only had to deal with federal mandates. We have many, many requirements of state companies in New Jersey to benefit our people here that ERISA plans did not have to. Now, what does this all mean to everybody? So why you mention ERISA plans? Well, that's the one reason why you couldn't buy over state lines. Because you see, every state has different requirements. So if I bought insurance in Pennsylvania that's less expensive than New Jersey, they didn't cover everything that New Jersey required companies to cover if you were a New Jersey-based company or had employees in New Jersey that were not ERISA employees. So therefore, you could not buy over state lines. So that's why people couldn't buy over state lines, because every state had different requirements.
Right.
The problem is, if the federal government's going to say you can now buy over state lines, you are basically saying to every company, you're an ERISA plan. You no longer have to deal with state mandates. What does that mean? That means that a lot of things we've done in the state to help people, to make sure that people have special things in insurance, whether it's hearing aids, whether it's dealing with vitro and fertilization requirements that an insurance company must let you try that, or go away, including this new thing that the governor has been working on, considering requiring insurance companies to cover people going in for drug rehab and alcohol rehab. That goes away because that's not a requirement of the federal government. Now, so you have to know, if you go with the changes which everyone's talking about and be able to buy insurance less expensive, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to change in the basic requirements of the insurance companies to cover you. And by the way, if we didn't require that of insurance companies, the cost of insurance in New Jersey would go down considerably. Secondly, along that same line, we recently sold something called OmniPlan. You ever heard of OmniPlan?
Yes, I have.
Right. Well, OmniPlan, as you know, was a product of the Blues that turned around and said, we're going to pick out Tier 1 hospitals in the state of New Jersey. And if you go to that Tier 1 hospital with an OmniPlan, we're going to discount your insurance. And as much as saving 20 or 25% of the cost of health insurance to that company if they choose OmniPlan. Now, there are Tier 1 hospitals and Tier 2 hospitals. Yeah. Right. Well, very fortunate in Ocean County, everybody's Tier 1.
If I may just say, you
Sure.
did a great, I saw that editorial,
Right.
that op-ed piece in the Asbury Park Press.
And
it outlined your argument very clearly.
And that's important for people to understand is, and that's a great thing. As a matter of fact, the program works so well that if you're a state employee and have state health benefits from the state, if you choose to take Omni as your insurance carrier, they will give you a $2,000 bonus for making that choice because it saves the state so much money by doing that. But here's the problem with it, as I pointed out in the editorial. We're now making insurance companies determine which hospitals will survive and which will fail because Tier 2 hospitals are going to have a financial bite out of them. Because if you go to a Tier 2 hospital, other than an emergency, you pay a much higher copay and it's out of network and everything else like that. So basically, my only question is, and I don't have that direct answer because you have to think about it, is do we want insurance companies to determine which hospitals will stay open and which will close? Because that's what's going to happen. By the way, it's not just the Blues. Aetna came out with a plan like that. There's a number of plans going that way. Right. And how are they saving money? They're saying to those Tier 1 hospitals, we're going to drive more business to you, so therefore give us a better price. And they pass on that saving to the insurer. Now, that's a very positive thing. I mean, that's not a negative thing. How do you bring down the cost of health care? But everything comes with a price. And the price is, if we go along those lines down the road, we're going to see community hospitals throughout the state fail. Now, maybe you might say, well, we're over-hospitaled, we're over-bedded, but understand...
I doubt it.
Well, the real thing you have to understand is hospitals are economic engines to every community they're in.
There is no doubt about it.
They employ people. They are major users of services, everything else you can think about, and no one wants to see their hospital closed. So I'm just saying is, be careful sometimes what you wish for because there are consequences, and that's one consequence. And we talked about all things in the same thing where everyone talks about, out of network, and we should get rid of that, and doctors should take what the insurance companies want to give them, and all things like that, except, you're now going to drive a lot of specialists out of state. You're now going to have doctors open offices in Pennsylvania and New York that have better arrangements and say, I don't want to deal with you in New Jersey. And second of all, the state that's aging the way we are in New Jersey, we need more doctors to come here, not less. So there's some issues we have to look at together. Obamacare plays into this, how those reforms are going to affect it, who's going to be knocked off of insurance, what do we do with those that are knocked off, how do we help the people who are being subsidized, the Medicaid patients, that 100,000 we talked about in New Jersey, what is the best thing for New Jersey? Now, I can't tell you right now if the best thing is to vote against the bill. I can only tell you one thing. We've got to change something. Obamacare didn't work. It was unaffordable, unsustainable, but what is the alternative? It has to be something that is beneficial to the state of New Jersey and our residents here. So that's where we have to balance the whole thing.
And Congressman Lobiondo this afternoon already indicated he's not voting for it. He said he voted for repeal, but he voted for repeal with the intent of getting something that improves on Obamacare. He says this isn't it for New Jersey, especially South Jersey, where he quoted about 30% of the population is either on Medicare or Medicaid. Ocean County has, obviously, 28% of its population is over 65. The highest population of over 65, over 75, and over 85 in the entire state. So this whatever happens is going to affect here directly. And hospitals, especially in the southern end of the state, are, as you mentioned, the economic drivers. In many cases, the biggest employers.
Yeah, but there's a few. See, but why it gets more complicated is understand that one of the ways they afforded Obamacare was stealing money from the Medicare funds. Hundreds of millions of dollars were stolen from Medicare, which was seniors' money, to fund the rest of Obamacare. So we have to be careful what we talk about. It's not a simplistic thing. My concern is, number one, we all are very concerned about senior citizens. I'm a senior. I'm on Medicare. So I want to make sure that seniors are protected, and they certainly have the right to choose their doctor and get the care they need. Secondly, we have to also make sure that we don't find ourselves again with a large portion of our population uninsured. That doesn't benefit anybody. And that's something we certainly know it. But there's going to be that in between of what we want to see and what's going to happen. We have to see what that compromise is. I don't think that the final version we've seen yet. Hopefully not. I would certainly, and I certainly have to listen to a Senator Lobiano, people like that, because they're hearing firsthand what's going on there in Washington, and we look for their guidance. But again, Obamacare was failing. It was unaffordable, unsustainable. But we have to find something that's not going to strip our people of New Jersey from insurance, not going to leave our seniors out in the cold, not going to affect the poor that are on Medicaid and not having insurance. We don't want to go back to that era, but we certainly want to do something that we can maintain and sustain that doesn't bankrupt the state or the country.
Now, last I checked, Congressman MacArthur is still in favor for it, and he's calling tomorrow to elaborate on it a little bit, probably before the vote. But I'm interested to hear his perspective, because that's insurance is his career. And he's got a different perspective than a Lobiano or even a Frank Malone. And so the thing that really struck me was that this is not an issue that's going down party lines anymore. In fact, there are no issues going down party lines in Washington anymore.
Well, but there's
I'm
one thing.
wondering if that's trickling down to Trenton.
Well, it is and it isn't. The case with Obamacare and why we're seeing different aspects of it, they said, and this is what I hear from the news like everyone else gets, that the version that the House is going to pass is not going to be the version the Senate's going to pass. And then there'll have to be some kind of compromise. So I'm sure we haven't seen the final version, and hopefully we'll be able to satisfy the concerns that Senator Lobiano, which, by the way, I served with in the Assembly in Trenton. Wonderful man. I love Frank. He's a super congressman. And again, you know, we want to do the right thing for the residents of New Jersey. I want to do the right thing for the residents. So I'm taking a wait and see attitude to what the final version is, so that we can really understand what's going to happen to New Jersey in this realignment of healthcare. Senator
Robert Singer is our guest in the studio for the hour, and you have a chance to call him here at 732-505-1160. He serves on the Health, Human Services, and Senior Committee, and also the Higher Education Committee. And you've done a lot of trailblazing about higher education in the past couple of months, specifically about financial literacy for not only collegians but high schoolers going there. Can we talk a little bit about the loan bill?
Well, let me share one thing to you. It's nice to talk the talk, but I'm walking the walk.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids, and my 2 youngest are in college right now. So I'm experiencing what every parent who has a young adult in college is going through, and one's a freshman and one's a sophomore. So it isn't years of saying, well, that was years ago. It's presently right now. I don't think that enough was discussed in high school with young people and their parents about decisions they have to make for affordability of higher education. Number one, we have not pushed enough about the STARS program, which is a wonderful program, which takes the top 15% of our students in our high school and provides them with a free education at community colleges. Wonderful opportunity. Ocean County Community College, Brookdale Community College, just fabulous places of education that are now going into 4 years right there. You can go to OCC and do 4 years right at OCC, 2 years at OCC Community, then 2 years at Kane College, and come out with a 4-year degree at an affordable cost factor. And I think that young people and adults, their parents, have to look at all these options that are available to their youngsters to make sure they make the best decision that makes the most sense economically for both themselves individually and for their family. Second of all, there are other options as to applying for our four-year institutions, whether it's Rowan, whether it's Rutgers, whether it's College of New Jersey, wonderful Montclair, wonderful educational facilities around the state of New Jersey, what they cost, what grants are available, what loans are available, what is that payback aspect? I had a young person that I know, his parents were talking to me, and they said, they had gone to Rutgers University and gotten an engineering degree. Great school, great engineering degree. And we're working for a major company in New Jersey as a project manager and making about $70-something thousand a year, which is a very lovely starting salary, very impressive starting salary. But part of the problem they were facing is his payback of his college loan was $1,200 a month.
And even at that pay scale.
Right. So where are you living? I'm living at home. Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is we've got to talk about it. We've got to make sure that, number one, the profession you're choosing can pay back the cost of education that you're getting. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing, because if you're going to go on to graduate school or get a doctorate after your 4 years, what is that cost factor going to mean? And what is that job you're going to get affordable to pay back that loan? And understand that. They say, well, I'm 17, I'm 16, I can't. You've got to do that. You don't have the option anymore to say, it's not my problem. It is your problem. And how many grants out there and how many scholarships out there are left people are not even applying for? We've got to talk about that, and young people have to understand it, and they have to understand that they don't have the opportunity anymore just to go to college and say, well, I'm going to spend 4 years and I'll decide what I want to do when I get out. You can't do that at the cost of, in a state university today, in Rutgers, all in, without any grants, and now you're going to get certain grants, but it's $26,000 a year. That means if I got no money off and I had no money to put down, what are you talking about, $100,000? Mm-hmm. Now, there are grants they're going to get from the state, and there's other things they can get to bring that number down. And also, it depends on income of the family and a lot of other things. But I'm saying to you is, you've got to realize up front that education is expensive, that you've got to make sure you're getting the most for the dollars that you're investing in your education, and that end result, that job at the end of it, can afford to pay back the loans you're taking. And we don't want to talk about it. We claim we don't have enough guidance counselor. Well, we have to. It's not fair to the parent. It's not fair to the young person taking this, and they have to understand all their options. And let me tell you one thing. Anybody thinks that they don't get a good education at community college is a fool. There are fabulous educations there, and you've got to take that into account and look to see what makes the most sense for you and makes the most sense for the dollars you're going to spend for education and where you're going to end up afterwards. Let me tell you something right now. If I can end up with no debt or little debt at the end of 4 years, you're a winner.
Mm-hmm. So. You have a proposal also, which has, I believe, cleared the Senate, which essentially alters the NJ STARS program and brings private colleges into that universe.
Fold. Absolutely.
How does it help?
Well, we're talking about reimbursing the state towards those colleges and let them do some push into that. Again, we've got to know that we don't have enough space in all our public institutions for all our young people. We want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to go to college and get the education they want. And in the private institutions, there's some great ones. You got Monmouth University, you got Georgian Court University right here in Ocean and Monmouth County. You've got Kane College now at OCC. There's wonderful things happening, and we want to make sure that every child has that opportunity to get the education they want and make it affordable.
Senator Singer is with us for the hour, and we are going to just step out for a brief second and give him a chance to catch his breath, because we got a lot more to go over, and we invite you to join us. So stick around.
Let the State House know what's on your mind. Call 732-505-1160. Ask the Senator continues next. Beach Radio, 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
Tune in to Luz Catena, certified financial planner and host of The Financial Physician, every Sunday at 11 a.m. on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310. During these stressful times, it's more important than ever to keep informed about the economy, financial markets, investments, and income taxes. He'll take your phone calls and answer questions on any money matter. You'll hear no-nonsense, straightforward financial advice and commentary. So make an appointment with your financial physician every Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
Have you heard? Shift is coming to Beach Radio 1160 and 1310, Thursday mornings from 10 to 11 a.m. with me, Fran Holinda, your host and certified professional life coach. I'm going to help you shift your perspective to better manage life's daily challenges with greater ease and less stress. We'll have guests and call-ins. We'll swap serious and funny stories. We'll laugh and cry together. Bottom line, it's going to be a real shift show around here, so be prepared to tune in and call in. And together, we're going to make shift happen.
You know you're in the market for a new car when, and definitely when.
Congratulations on the twins.
Luckily, when it comes to auto loans, Navy Federal Credit Union offers competitive rates, a pre-approval check, and up to 100% financing. So when you know you're ready for a better, Navy Federal is ready to help. Visit NavyFederal.org for more information. Open to the Armed Forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Navy Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA.
Here's a question for you. Do you know this song?
Twist and shout, twist and shout.
Okay, let's think about this. Why is it that everyone remembers hundreds of songs, almost note for note, they never set out to memorize? That's the power of sound. It's sticky. When you hear a song, or maybe a good advertising message with some frequency week after week for about 6 months, it gets into your long-term memory even when you don't intend it to. You remember it because you heard it. That's why radio is the sticky advertising medium. You don't hear a newspaper or billboard, and really not a web page or a Facebook ad. Okay, TV has the power of sound too, but advertising on TV week after week can be pretty expensive. With radio, you can afford to get sticky. Then, when somebody's in the market for what you sell, who are they going to remember? If you want them to remember you, take advantage of radio. The power of sound.
To find out how the power of radio can help your business grow, call Mike Rubel at 609-910-5249.
From Ocean County to the State House, talk to your senator right now. 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Senator. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
Senator Robert Singer is our guest for the hour, 732-505-1160. And are you this intense when you go on vacation? I'm just wondering.
Absolutely not. We go away. I just was away a few weeks ago. We'd go away with 5 or 6 couples every year, and we play golf, and we did zip lining, and we do a lot of all.
You zip line?
Oh, absolutely, and not the first time. We enjoy that. So I relax on vacation like everybody else. It just when it comes to issues that mean a lot to me, and education means a lot to me, and healthcare is something I've been involved in my whole life. And a lot of other issues, I'm passionate about it, and I think it's important that people that represent people are passionate about the issues that affect their constituency and affect the people of the state of New Jersey.
So you save it for the State House?
And my office.
In your office. It's not, but when you go on vacation, it's not, okay, we're going to get everything done today.
I enjoy the beach on the weekends like everyone else, and I'm a beach person, and I enjoy my vacation.
You don't stand at the water's edge going to the waves faster. Come on.
No.
Okay. Just checking. Speaking of the beach, there's there's some legislation you have regarding storm prep. And we're coming into hurricane season in another couple of months. Can you elaborate a little bit about that bill? Because everybody talks about storm prep. Nobody really preps. And that's been a bug of mine, and I'm hoping that our next big forum at Ocean County College can be about that.
I really have first of all, I'm very thankful the Senate President allowed me to be part of this. Steve Sweeney and I get along well on these issues and a lot of other issues, especially special needs kids, because he has a Down syndrome child, and my nephew's Down syndrome, so those issues are very near and dear to us. But when it comes to preparation, as the Vice Chairman of the Ocean County Board of Health, and we're the largest Board of Health in the state of New Jersey, we were very involved in Sandy. I saw firsthand a lot of the issues that were affected by it. We have to be prepared, and I wish I could tell you there'll never be another storm again like a Sandy, and pray to God there won't be, but there might be, and we have to be better prepared for that. We have to have better coordination between our hospitals and our centers. We've got to make sure we learned from Sandy. We have to make sure we implement that learning curve. For example, we had doctors that wanted to volunteer to come and work at our facilities. We have no way from the Board of Health to
You had to
clear a
verify
doc-
them.
Yeah.
You had to clear them.
So the problem is we need to do that through the hospitals. Well, we didn't have that coordination set up where the hospital said, okay, we can clear this. So we've got to make sure that happens. We work through it where pharmacies in the non-affected areas were able to fill prescriptions that people left behind. Keep in mind, the one thing that what happened with Sandy that was so shocking is it happened so fast. Everyone thought that, well, if you're going to get a storm surge, yeah, I'll have time. I'll have time to pack the car up. I'll take all my medicine and everything else and put it there before I go. And the person walked downstairs and it was a little damp and walked back up, came back downstairs again. There was 4 feet of water there.
Yeah.
So people were coming into our shelters with the clothes on their back soaking wet, with where do I bathe? Where do I get a towel and soap? Where do I get clothes to put on?
What do I eat?
Well, that was easier to think about, believe it or not, than that, because no one prepared to say, where do I give him a washcloth? Where do I give him a towel?
Where do I get a bar of soap?
So we had that stuff. We had to go find it, and so we have to prepare to understand is we have to be everything to everybody. Second of all, think about one thing: people walked in with their pet. You can't keep a pet in a shelter.
Right.
Now you got to take all these pets and every kind of pet you can imagine, from the pet snake to the goldfish to
the monkey,
the
the bird.
So, and we've got to take them someplace. And we got to make sure we identify who they belong to, and we have to take care of them, and we have to transport them because you can't keep the pet in a shelter. So those are just some of the issues that we work through, but have to be smoother. And the other issue is, which we have to prepare for. What about if there's a storm that hits the farms in Ocean County and there are bigger animals you have to move?
Never thought about
You have to store. We're preparing for that. You got to have a place to bring horses and cows, whatever it might have to be. You have to be able to store them someplace. We have to. That area is going to be flooded. So there's a lot of things we have to prepare for that people don't think about. And we're up one step because Ocean County has its own pounds and shelters. Other people don't. Think about it. We're the largest Board of Health. The next step down isn't a little bit smaller than us. It's
way
all the
down.
way down, and they don't have that. So now you've got to be able to use private nonprofits to bolster some of these things up that we have in hand. And who do you go to and how does it get done? We've got to have all that in place. And we're very, very fortunate about this storm in one respect. Remember, it didn't come head on all over.
Right.
So it kind of skipped up the coast, as you know. We don't know how the next storm is going to be that.
No.
And also
Every
we
one
didn't
of
have a
them is
lot of
different.
rain. We all thought we did not have a lot of rain.
It was a wind event.
Exactly right. So a rain event might have done greater flooding in turn. So we've got to think of the worst, unfortunately, and be prepared to react to it in the best way possible, making sure we have everything in place to do so. An example being is we were fortunate that even though someone came into our facilities didn't have their medicine, that there were pharmacies in Manchester that weren't closed down, were able to fill them for us. CVS worked with us, and places like Walgreens worked with us. They were very, very good about that. But we don't know what happens if it's greater area than that we're sitting. Remember what happened with the gas stations?
Yes.
Very simple thing. Many gas stations don't have generators. Well, you can have gas in the ground, but how do you get it out? So that's something we have to talk about. We also found out that many municipalities didn't have generators in their police stations or in other aspects of things. That's critical. And where do you move your command center if your town hall is non-functioning? So there's a lot of things that we've got to put money into and help into to make sure that towns and counties are in the best possible shape they can be for any disaster, no matter how devastating it is, that they're still able to function, protect the residents, and provide that safe haven properly. So we're really putting some money into it. We're putting in some thinking to make sure that we're prepared, God forbid something else happens again.
Let me drop a bug in your ear about that, because I spent a couple of quality hours this morning over at the Ocean County Health Department with Dr. Mukesh Roy.
Excellent.
Incredible. He's a visionary. And one thing that has not happened, which he pointed out to me, and I had looked back, and it hasn't happened. This storm hit New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut in entirely different ways.
Correct.
And they all had methods of dealing with their specific. It was 3 storms for 3 different states, 3 different kinds of responses. There hasn't been a meeting of the minds from all 3 states to say, okay, how did you handle this? What worked, what didn't work? Here's what worked for us, here's what didn't work for us. and kind of get everybody on the same page so that there's actually now a textbook of best practices that covers a lot more than just what we went through. Now we know what they went through, and we're ready for that if it happens here. He wants a conference, and that hasn't happened yet. I want to drop that in your ear because maybe we can start that. Maybe we can get our colleagues in New York and Connecticut come down to Ocean County. We've got enough room. We can get a venue and bring everybody to one table and say, okay, what did you do? We're coming up to 5 years this year. Before we get there, what did you do? So that we know what to do the next time.
Well, I'll speak to Mikesh about when I see him, but let me say one thing to you too that was very important. We have to realize that the devastation of the storm was widespread, that we couldn't look to New York and Connecticut for help, which we normally could have.
I'm not suggesting we go to them for help.
But I'm saying to you, but that's also, reciprocal help is also important in that aspect.
All right.
I think that the issue that he brings about is we have to learn more as to what we can do to help each other out. The impacts of this storm we're still feeling it. Go down to Seaside Park and look at the boardwalk, and you still see that we're not back yet. Talk to the homeowners who haven't rebuilt their house yet. We're still not back yet. So there's a lot of things that we have to learn from this as to better deal with those issues, making sure that the homeowners get the money faster. Making sure that homes get rebuilt.
There's enough money.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had some argument about it with the commissioners when I met with them when it originally happened about the block grant money. I said, I don't think that you're really understanding how to give it out, and their answer is, don't tell me, and they just gave it out counties. So people, even though that there might have been some destruction within your community, the hardest hit were the shore communities. So you've got to look to guide your dollars to the communities that were hardest hit, not necessarily because they were in the county. I mean, the answer is my house. I had a tree fall in my house, take out my pool heater, cause a fire, and we had I had $75,000 worth of damage. I mean, but my house was still standing. I was in better shape, even though there was a tree laying on it, than someone who lost their entire house. So you've got to prioritize where you've got to look, because I could still live in my house.
Right.
I'm more concerned about the person that couldn't. So I think we've got to look at that, how money was spent and how it could be better spent, how the reporting with FEMA was difficult and cumbersome, and how FEMA really blocked some of the things being done and told you what you had to do, and all kinds of fighting. I really felt to a great extent FEMA's job was to deny you getting money instead of helping you getting money. And the same thing with flood insurance. They were finding ways not to qualify you instead of finding ways to qualify you. And that's the big problem. Instead of saying, how do I get this money to you, it was, how do I don't get this money to you? And that's, if you think not, that's not true. Many people were denied, and for silly reasons. You say, how could that be? Well, that porch really wasn't a porch. It was crazy things.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to is, we've got to learn from that aspect of it. That's part of it. There's no question about it that we have to look at coordination, what equipment is needed, all up and down the line, and how we have to deal with it. But again, one of the good things that came out of this was an awakening of the utilities of what they have to do to upgrade their facilities so that we don't have the long outages we had in the past. And that was a key factor, whether it was dealing with JCP&L, New Jersey Natural Gas, the water companies, whatever we needed. We have to make sure that we don't go through what we went before, where substations were flooded, where lines were down for a long period. We just, and I think we have. I think they've all made major infrastructure dollars into the area to prevent that from happening again. And if that positive thing is happening right now because of that storm. And they really have been. I've been through a number of meetings and ribbon cuttings of things that both JCP&L and New Jersey Natural Gas have done to prevent those problems from happening, to make sure that we don't have those and again, those long periods of time with no power. The amount of trees that came down were astronomical.
Yeah.
Doing better trimming, doing better site clearing. All these things are part and parcel of what has to be done to the future to protect our state. And I think some of those things are happening, but we've got to review that continually and make improvements continually on those issues.
State Senator Robert Singer is with us on Ask the Senator for this month, and we are going to take one short break, and we will come back for more right after this.
Let the State House know what's on your mind. Call 732-505-1160. Ask the Senator continues next. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
Tune in to Luz Catena, certified financial planner and host of The Financial Physician, every Sunday at 11 a.m. on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310. During these stressful times, it's more important than ever to keep informed about the economy, financial markets, investments, and income taxes. He'll take your phone calls and answer questions on any money matter. You'll hear no-nonsense, straightforward financial advice and commentary. So make an appointment with your financial physician every Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
Stepbacher Law Offices, Scranton, Pennsylvania. Not available in all states. If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to a tax-free share of billions of dollars that have been set aside for mesothelioma cancer patients. Mesothelioma is only caused by exposure to asbestos. Many patients were exposed to asbestos and didn't even know it. Call right now to get the facts about your legal rights and possible financial compensation. Call 800-914-0326. That's 800-914-0326.
Here's a question for you. Do you know this song?
Twist and shout, twist and shout.
Okay, let's think about this. Why is it that everyone remembers hundreds of songs, almost note for note, they never set out to memorize? That's the power of sound. It's sticky. When you hear a song, or maybe a good advertising message with some frequency week after week for about 6 months, it gets into your long-term memory even when you don't intend it to. You remember it because you heard it. That's why radio is the sticky advertising medium. You don't hear a newspaper or billboard, and really not a web page or a Facebook ad. Okay, TV has the power of sound too, but advertising on TV week after week can be pretty expensive. With radio, you can afford to get sticky. Then, when somebody's in the market for what you sell, who are they going to remember? If you want them to remember you, take advantage of radio. The power of sound.
To find out how the power of radio can help your business grow, call Mike Rubel at 609-910-5249.
Jersey Shore weather.
Cold conditions overnight, but much nicer by the start of the weekend. Some rain could return by Sunday. Clear skies overnight. Gusty winds gradually diminish, a low around 20 degrees. Northwest winds dropping down to 5 to 10 miles an hour. Sunny on Thursday, a little bit warmer. Highs up in the mid-40s. And mostly cloudy weather returns on Friday. Highs in the low 50s. A look ahead to the weekend. Cloudy Saturday, much warmer. A high near 70. A chance of rain returning Sunday in the afternoon. A high in the mid-40s. I'm meteorologist Mark Thibodeau.
From Ocean County to the State House. Talk to your senator right now. 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Senator. Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
We're back with Senator Robert Singer. We have a few more minutes together, and I thank you for listening tonight. I'm glad I got you early before things get nuts and you've got a whole election cycle to go through. I don't know how many more of these we'll have before the election cycle really kicks in. And I can't talk to you about anything for a while because then it'll be electioneering.
That's true.
But
the silly season, we call it.
The silly season, yeah. But I am seeing so many. I don't recall seeing this crowded a field for the governor's seat as I am now. Mostly with basically fringe people who I've never heard of before. Some of whom I have, but I'm seeing a huge field, all dominated by Phil Murphy and Lieutenant Governor Guadagno. But there's all these other people.
Well,
does this make for a healthier election, or is this basically drawing away from potential leaders?
No, I think this is really the if you really wanted my opinion, this is the Trump effect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I can't, you can. On the Phil Murphy aspect of things, there's a lot of resentment. It's just another cosign buying the election because I'm self-funded. Another Goldman Sachs guy walking through the door. What about everyone else that wants to be governor from the Democratic side? Mm-hmm. And you're seeing that. And there's some 8 or 9 people running the Democratic side saying, wait a second, Just because I'm not a gazillionaire doesn't mean I don't have great ideas and I can't be the governor of the state of New Jersey. And you know something? Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, it's, hey, because you're lieutenant governor doesn't mean you're going to be the governor. And we have ideas also. So I think it's healthy. It's healthy that nobody is crowned, that nobody walks in like it's given to them, that they have to earn it, and that people get to hear the ideas that individual has to make sure that we have the two best candidates, one from the Democratic side, one from the Republican side, that are going to run for the office of governor of the state. I personally am a lieutenant governor, Kim Cardano fan. I think she does a fabulous job, makes a great presentation, would make a great governor. But that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the electorate have the right to see other people, hear other people, and challenge that. And that's a great thing, and that's a great thing about this country. So I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see it's a crowded field. I'm glad that nobody's being ordained as the person, and that we're going to have an opportunity to hear and see people and make the right choice, that the two people that face each other in November are the right people for the state of New Jersey.
Now, New Jersey has had a Democrat presence in the State House for I don't know how long now. It's been Democratic controlled.
It's been controlled 16 years.
Okay, so it's within my lifetime, but it seems like forever.
And 16 years is almost forever.
Yeah, so do you think that this will spill over into that? Do you think there's going to be a greater opportunity for to question that?
I wish there would be. I really wish there would be.
Is it all down to the districts and the concentration up north?
Well, the problem that you have is, and this is a partisan comment, you accept it as a partisan comment. I believe in Republican districts. Every Republican has to earn their wings every day. There's no given.
Mm-hmm.
I run just as hard today as I did the first day I ran in office. I'm not given the seat because my district may lean Republican. I have to earn it. Because Republican voters, independent voters, look at what you've done and make that judgment call. Unfortunately, in many Democratic districts, the entire fight is the primary. And once you go to the general, if you're in the Democratic slot, you're an automatic winner.
Mm-hmm.
And I can show examples where in the most Republican districts in the state of New Jersey, where that legislator screwed up, they've lost and Democratic won. I cannot show you that in Democratic districts that a Democrat has screwed up and that the Democratic lost. I have seen Democratic districts, unlike Republican districts, people have been indicted and won primaries and stuff like that. So I'm only saying to you is, I wish I could tell you that the people took a look and said the legislature, both houses have been controlled predominantly for 16 years because of the way the maps have been drawn by the Democratic Party. And even though Christie has been the governor for 7 of the last years, both houses have been Democratic controlled that entire time in the 8 years or 10 years prior to that. And maybe if we had a switch and maybe at least one house was Republican controlled, we get more things done. The answer is that's not the case, and I would tell you that I wish it would change this election. There's always that chance, as I said with the Trump factor. There's always that chance, but it's a tough road to hoe in New Jersey, and certainly based on a lot of the districts in North Jersey that have been predominantly Democratic, no matter who the candidate is. And by the way, we've run outstanding Republican candidates that are pillars of the community. In one case, an Olympian, all kinds of things, and they've gotten no place, even though they might have been far above their opponent. Didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. You're always going to, even if there is some sort of, there's a dichotomy in the State House. If it was a Republican assembly and a Democrat-controlled Senate, you're always going to have that same gridlock argument that you have with a Republican governor and the Democrat-controlled legislature. You could get something done, but then again, depending on the issue and depending upon what it means to a specific district, you could run into that same logjam. It might be more along the lines of compromise bills, no?
Well, that's true, but the problem is that during an election year, compromise bills are very tough. Everyone is playing politics, and unfortunately, I don't expect a lot to get done this year because it is an election year.
And that all comes down to what bills get posted, and there are a lot of them that the Senate passes, as I've seen. A lot of them have been yours in the past month, and then now I wait for a vote on that. I wait for that to show up somewhere else, and sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Well, the Senate president and speaker are not exactly on the best of terms, even though they're both Democrats. So that's part of the push and pull that's going on in Trenton. I will tell you that I have been able to, through people I know there, between issues that are important to me and other people, get a lot of bills passed, which I'm very proud of in a minority perspective.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we wanted to talk about, and I think that's really key, is bail reform.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes you do the right thing and end up no good deed gets unpunished. Bail reform was presented to us as something that was very important. A person gets charged with a minor crime, gets arrested on a Friday, and had to sit in jail until Monday because there was no court in session and it wasn't an emergency, and no bail could be posted, and that individual who was accused of something minor was sitting in jail for 3 days and sometimes longer. We just said for minor crimes, things like that, there's got to be a speedier bail hearing. It should be within 24 hours. People should not have to sit in jail for minor infractions. We've got to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounded great, and everyone passed it, and the governor was supportive of it, and we all did so, until we said, what are the downsides now? And there are several downsides. Number one is, unfortunately, a lot of, speak to the prosecutors, a lot of people he thinks that should not get out on bail are getting out with no bail right now because based on the law. So maybe we have to take a look at that.
Yeah, and whether or not they stay there depends on a set of criteria.
Exactly right. And was it a second offense of the same thing and this and that? So I think we have to take a look at that because those are the potential consequences of the law. But there's another problem that I tried to work with, because I got a phone call from the prosecutors and I got a phone call from the sheriffs. Said, we passed a 2% cap, which meant your towns could not go over that 2%. We now have to staff up for weekends. So I have to have sheriff's officers on weekends. I have to have prosecutors on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have detectives in the prosecutor's office on weekends. And I have to have judges on weekends. So, of course, the legislature said, we'll take care of the judges. We just approved 21 judges. Yeah. Well, 21 judges, each judge is $1 million. That's $21 million you just approved. So, that is the cost of a judge and his staff is $1 million. So we just approved 21 judges because somebody has to work Saturday and Sunday now. I mean, you can't say to a judge, you're going to work Monday, you're going to work 7 days a week. They just can't physically do it. So you have to have somebody that's going to lap over and take care of that. But the prosecutors and the sheriff said, wait a second. With the 2%, where do I get the money to pay for the overtime or additional officers to do that? Because I need those officers also during the week to protect the public and deal with that issue. So they asked for a 2-year cap waiver for strictly bail reform.
Mm-hmm.
So that whether it was a municipality factor or in the case of the county mostly, that they could afford to bring in the staff they needed to deal with this weekend and night situation. So they did not have to cut overtime services they had to do to the public, and in some cases cut staff. Now, the bigger counties have less of a problem because they have huger budgets.
Right.
It's the smaller counties that have the difficult problem. So with the Senate president, who was a Singer-Sweeney bill, we introduced legislation to say for a 2-year period, we will allow the counties and groups involved with the bail reform to exceed the 2% cap to be able to staff up to deal with the bail reform. Supported by the prosecutors, supported by the sheriffs, everybody was saying, great idea, that's what we need, not because we want to spend more money, but we have to be able to staff up and not devastate our divisions that protect us and the public need. Well, the League of Counties said, no. That would raise taxes, and therefore we're against it. So my position was, wait a second, you're telling me that you'd rather lay off sheriff's officers or lay off detectives or prosecutors to staff up? What to be will be. And I said, well, if you're telling me that that's the way the counties all feel about it, and whether you felt that way or not, you're part of that association, and you're taking a dead aim and saying to myself, this is going to raise taxes, the last thing I want to do is to raise your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So the Senate president and I withdrew the bill and said, okay, you handle it.
And it's not being handled.
No, it's on the counties themselves. And if the counties don't like it, let them leave the association. Let them say, you know what, you don't represent the best interest of our people. But that's up to them. It's not up to me anymore. I offered the helping hand. I thought I was doing something to help them the right way, and they smacked my hand. They slapped my hand. And therefore I said, hey, it's not my job if you don't want the help to give you the help. So we're going to see it right now, and I'm telling you right now, the sheriff in Ocean County, Sheriff Mastronati, one of the finest sheriffs in the country, he doesn't know where he's going to get his people from. Joe Coronado, great prosecutor, doesn't know where he's going to get the staffing from. I could say the same in Monmouth and all around. So what they've done simply is stretched our resources in an area. When you talk about problems with drugs, is there any county has a greater problem than we want to talk about with 140 deaths last year in Ocean County, overdose of heroin? Our county prosecutor is upfront on this and dealing with this. Our sheriff's department's dealing with these issues. Do we want to curtail the work we're doing there just because of bail reform? It's going to come from someplace. And my answer is that I gave the helping hand for a 2-year period that I thought made sense, and therefore was rejected. So that's why in my...
That argument is hollow, by the way, because the 2% cap is riddled with riders that allow you to go through.
No question about it.
Otherwise, property taxes would not keep going up.
It's the first time in my history in the legislature I ever withdrew a bill. And I just said, I'm sorry. That comment from them was
that's what
beyond.
drew my attention, because I always see bills going in one direction. This is the first time I've seen one go in the other direction.
Well, I absolutely
At least, but and publicized. Like, I want you to know I'm withdrawing this bill. Now I have a deeper understanding as to what went into that. But that is such a hollow argument.
Well, it's on them now. And as I said to you, our county is very affected by that. And I will tell you that I could not get the bill through with that aspect of the counties opposing it and saying we don't want it, we don't need it. And I think it was very short-sighted, and it didn't take into account of what the alternative is going to be. We'll see.
That was something that struck me, and it's been striking me ever since the beginning of the year with regard to bail reform. There's a whole new set of criteria that it's up to the judge.
There's a lot of leeway in it, and I think we're going to have to take a look at that.
To determine someone's risk assessment, essentially. Right. And there are people who go out and they're recidivists, and you can't know that. Guy might have no record, but when he gets out again, it doesn't mean he's not going to do the same thing. There are so many ifs that go with that.
The prosecutors are very concerned about it. Law enforcement concerned about it. We have to take a second look at it. And I think that it's a learning curve. And I think the first shot out of the gate, it sounded wonderful and great. And now we're seeing some of the consequences from some of those actions. So I'm hoping that we're going to take a look at it, learn from it. But I'll tell you one thing: the staffing factor and the money factor is not going away.
Yeah.
And that's just something that should have been addressed. Nobody said it to us originally. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a law enforcement person, and no one said to me, "If you vote for this, here's the consequence, the cost factor." No one ever told us that, and very honestly, we didn't think about it that way. Not realizing it's going to be 7 days a week, not realizing all these other aspects. So, as I said to you, I think we're going to have to revisit it. And again, the Association of Counties certainly haven't helped it.
Let me ask you, just to touch on something tangentially that you brought up in the middle of that discussion, and that was the drug addiction issue. And we just had a forum at Ocean County College this past Monday about this very point. We had some great discussion take place there. One of the things that happened in Ocean County first, and then spread to the rest of the state, was the use of Narcan. Naloxone to bring an overdose victim back. And there was, in the beginning, it was a nasal spray only, and it was complicated. You had to get trained for it. It's becoming easier now. It's now in the form of an EpiPen. And it's available to people, families, not just law enforcement anymore. It's being sold over the counter. in a CVS and Walgreens, and now Acme is adding it to their pharmacies.
We were
I'm
giving it
kinda
away at the
troubled.
beginning, by the way.
What was that?
We were giving it away also.
I'm a little troubled by the trend, though, and I don't know if I should be or not, because I'm seeing where there's so much more of a need for it. I don't see the need going away. You see where I'm going?
Well, you have to see. It's a complicated issue, like
people,
everything is.
And people are using. People are coming back multiple
Right,
times
well,
now.
they think it's the get out of jail free card.
Get out of death free
Well,
card.
yeah, well, you're right. We've seen multiple, and sometimes in the same day. The issue of heroin, and of course the newest thing is being cut by fentanyl, which is Narcan doesn't really work well on.
Right.
The issue is that this is not there's a little misconstrued in the public. The EpiPen, I mean, it's not the EpiPen.
The spray?
The shot doesn't cure you from anything.
Right.
It just saves your life.
Yeah, it just pulls you back.
Yeah. So and they made it like an EpiPen. That's what I meant to say. That the Narcan saves your life, but when you come down from it, you need another fix again.
Yeah, you're back. In
It
the
doesn't
same-
solve the problem.
Right.
What it does is it brings you back to the living, and then hopefully, and we encourage it, and police try to do that. That if you're given that shot, you've got to go to the hospital, because again you've got to come back down, and at that point we can convince you to go into treatment. And one thing I would give kudos to the governor on, and everything else like that, putting dollars and cents into treatment, because one of the biggest problems we had was a person said, okay, I want to go to treatment. And you keep in mind about one thing, a person has got to want to go. If you don't want to go, there's nothing we're going to do about it. But when they said I want to go and they didn't have insurance or they didn't have the right insurance and couldn't find a place, that was a deterrent to stopping this terrible epidemic of drug addiction. So putting money into it, making sure the insurance companies cover it, and that's when we go back to Obamacare. Are they going to cover it or not? But not having places for people to get treatment was a disservice, because it takes a 6-month period at least, to break the heroin addict. So you've got to be into treatment solidly for 6 months before you no longer require to have a drug or anything else like that on the heroin issue. And you just can't stop. It's not a movie where you say, okay, I'm not taking any more heroin anymore, I'm finished with it. You have to be medically detoxed from it, there's no question about that, and you have to be on treatment for it. And it's a 6-month period before you can finally not need any type of medication per se for that. It is a serious, serious illness that must be treated like an illness, and we've got to start to, which we've done, and I'm proud to say that we've done in our state, partly put money in the treatment and treating it as what it is, a disease, and helping these young people and these poor families that have been struggling with this. And I will tell you, it's your friends and neighbors that have been struggling with this and not being able to find a place that would treat their loved ones. And again, there's a failure rate and there's recidivism and everything you talk about it, but we must treat this of what it is. It's a terrible illness, and it must be treated as illness, not as a crime. And that's something that I give credit to the legislature to say, and especially our prosecutor. It is not a crime. And we have to treat it as an illness. And if we don't do that, we're never going to beat this. And again, education, understanding, talking to parents about this thing, letting young people understand that is the best thing. But it is a terrible thing, and it is something that has plagued our county and our state and our country now for the last couple of years in epic proportion.
And pushing it as an illness and a crime. And that's another story for another day. Senator, thank you. We're out of time.
Oh, went too fast.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Ask the Senator is a presentation of Town Square Media New Jersey's Shore News Division. And our producer and call screener is Mark Anthony. Video coordination was provided by Bradley James, and our technical support is from Tom Tremblay. Our Director of Operations is Steve Artolino. I'm Tom Mongelli. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next month. This will be available on mybeachradio.com and WOBM.com. Just check the webpage.
been listening to Ask the Senator, a presentation of WOBM News, Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com. Beach Radio is 1160 WOBM Lakewood Township, 1310 WADB Asbury Park, a town square media station. Live from the Preferred Home Healthcare Studio and the home of the best beaches in America. This is Beach Radio 1160, 1310, and mybeachradio.com.
The Jersey Shore's best oldies, Beach Radio. The Jersey Shore. Ba 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 ba. Oh ba 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 ba.